Howdy, y'all. Welcome to the Rainbow Crossing Podcast, a podcast where Gen X and Gen Z discuss life's challenges and how we face them as queer people. We have these open conversations to foster a sense of community through different perspectives. My name is Julio Guzman, and with me today is my fellow Homo sapien
and homosexual. Daniel.
Daniel.
Hey.
How's my favorite gay doing, specifically because I don't like a lot of gay people?
I was going to say, do I need to call him and ask? Like, I don't know how he's doing.
Oh my
But I'm
God.
doing well.
Who is this other gay that you think that I really like?
Honestly, nobody. Yeah.
It's just you.
It's me.
just you.
Yeah. I'm doing well. It's been a very busy week.
Yes.
I feel like despite what's going on in the world, my personal life, I know you believe in like manifesting and I think whether you believe in manifesting or just putting out good energy and having good energy return to you, I feel like that's the state that I'm in right now. And I just have all of these pieces kind of falling into place. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of work to pick them up and to put them together. Sure. But I'm very happy with the direction, my personal direction of 2025 is heading. It's just really, really busy.
Of course. And I'm very happy for you too, because I know it's been stressing you out lately a little bit.
Yeah.
And I've just been telling you be patient because the things are going to come to you.
And I knew they would. Intellectually, knowing something in your head and feeling it in your heart are two different things. Mm-hmm. So I feel good. I feel like the payoff is right around the corner now versus way down the street. So I'm good. I'm feeling good.
Thank God, because, oh my God.
I am nothing but positive love and energy around here.
For sure, until you need something now.
Well, and I know not to put you on a timeline. So
oh no, please don't.
I've learned that lesson.
Don't put me on a timeline.
How are you? How's your week been?
I'm doing good, as best as one can be with most of our community under attack.
Well,
so
right.
Doing well, staying strong. Being supportive to those who need it, and
a lot of people are in need right now.
And rebellion, resisting, and standing up when I need to. Nothing new, same thing. Always do this.
Same old Julio.
For sure. But I'm doing well. My week has been very, very chill. Is the word I would describe it as. Internally, at least.
Yeah.
Externally, it's been a madhouse in the States. For sure. And it's kind of hard to talk about anything else these days because, what are we supposed to talk about in times where your whole community and your whole world is under attack?
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of takes over. And you and I had this discussion an hour or so ago when we were debating on the topic for today's podcast. And we have a list of things that we can discuss that we made a long time ago. And it's just everything that's happening in our country and our government right now is just so overwhelming. It is really hard to think about anything else and to make it a priority ahead of this because everything is just so dire right now.
For sure. And especially when it affects a lot of us directly.
Right.
So us being who we are and us already being queer people that are minorities, and this specific podcast is to uplift one another and boost positive morale. But sometimes to get that positive morale going, we have to talk about the dark things that are keeping us from progressing.
Yeah.
So today we are going to discuss a lot of the things that have been happening in the past week. It's just been 1 week. It's just been a couple days, actually.
It's still, as we're recording this, it's the last day of January. So this will air in the first part of February, but it's still January.
Yeah. And that's crazy because last week's episode, we talked a lot about things going on since the presidency was official. And just from that week, so much more has happened that has just affected us tremendously. And it's like, okay, is this what the next 4 years is going to be like nonstop week after week? Because if so, buckle up, people.
It's exhausting. And I think that's part of the strategy. I mean, we talked a little bit about the fear and the chaos that's being sown as a result of all of the executive orders that were signed immediately. But there's another element to it as well, and that's just let's tire them out. Let's give them so much that they're going to be so exhausted just from these first few days, not even weeks. It's been a week and a half at this point that they are just going to want to retreat. They're not going to want to fight this. They're just going to give up. And we just have to double down. Like initially, I was very much like I was still exhausted from 2017 and feeling this way and going through these motions. And it took me a minute because I just didn't want to revisit all of that stuff again. But I mean, we don't have the luxury to not revisit it. So it took me a minute to get back into that mindset again. But it is time to advocate for our community and for all of the other minority communities that are being adversely affected as a result of this. Quite frankly, everyone's going to be adversely affected
Somehow.
unless you are the top 1%.
Yeah, 1,000%. Somehow every person will be affected.
Yeah.
Somehow. I mean, some more than others.
Yes.
And some back to back to back to back.
Yeah.
But at least everyone in the U.S. will be affected somehow.
Yeah. So before we dive into that, let's just start off on a fun, lighthearted note.
Are there any
there
right
is
now?
one
Please,
thing,
Daniel, let me know.
There is one thing that's the only thing I have right now. It's Carolyn from The Traitors.
Oh, queen.
So if our audience doesn't watch The Traitors, and I know you and I lean on some of these reality competition shows, maybe more so than some people, but I feel like The Traitors is very trendy right now, so maybe other people have tuned in as well. But it's a really fun and pretty gay show. There have been several gay contestants this season. The host, Alan Cumming, super gay, amazing. And so Carolyn, if you don't know who Carolyn is from The Traitors, she was on a season of Survivor a year or so ago and won the hearts of many a Survivor fan as well for her outrageous facial expressions and just kind of saying everything that's on her mind, but in kind of a sweet way.
Yeah.
But also sort of in an innocent, sort of dumbfounded way at the same time.
For sure. Very under the radar because of her kookiness.
Yeah.
Like she's just the same through and through, whether the circumstances are bad or great. She's just has this confused, big-eyed look of like something happening and then like exhaling very deeply to like establish what just happened.
Yeah.
But super entertaining to watch.
Yeah. So I will propose an icon or I can't to you. Carolyn, is she an icon or is she an I can't?
She is very much an icon. And if anyone can't with her, then something must be wrong because she is just authentically herself and she doesn't care how people look at her. She's just a good example of being authentic and not caring what anyone thinks of you, whether you look crazy or not.
She is the definition of wearing your heart on your sleeve. And I'm just watching and I'll just like laugh, not at her. I'm just laughing at the pure enjoyment that she brings to me. Just like watching her face, like you can see her mind working through all of her facial expressions, which is maybe it's a curse at times for her, but it's a blessing for the audience.
Yeah, but it's also just like worked to her advantage. I don't know how, but like even in times where things feel like they're not going to go her way, she sometimes just gets out of it with her energy. Just the way she is.
There is a charm to her.
It's a talent.
Nonetheless.
It's a talent. It really is a talent. Whether she's doing it on purpose or not, it's just a natural talent.
Yeah, I think it's who she is, and we should all just lean into who we are. And she does it to the max.
For sure. She's a great person to, I would even say, to look up to. She's been through some hard things that you've learned on Survivor and when it comes to drugs and rehabilitation, but she is someone who still embraces all aspects of herself truthfully, whether anyone likes her or not. And that's something that we could all take note of.
Right. Exactly.
So Carolyn, icon.
Agreed.
The one positive thing of this conversation.
That's it. So,
well, don't get me wrong. We will lead with all these things that are kind of dark, mostly dark, but we are hopefully going to uplift some people and shed some light into ways of thinking and how to progress from these things.
Yeah.
So today's topic is all about standing strong together and rising up and rebelling when you need to.
We're standing proud.
Yes.
I think that's a great term for us
proud
to use. Yeah.
And I know like rising up and rebellion sounds a little crazy to some people. It sounds a little bit like a revolution, but at this point in day and time, a little revolution is what we need because people in America are experiencing things that we have not experienced in a while. Well, they've always been happening, but now they're just at the front gate of everything with racism rising and everything just basically targeting anybody who's not the top 1%.
I think most of us who were old enough to have flashbacks to 2017 and those early days where people's racism was, they were given permission to speak these things out loud that they've been feeling. And I don't know how it's possible, but it seems that that's even more magnified this time around than it was previously.
Oh, for sure.
And I don't think that that's the vast majority of Americans at all, but they're the loudest ones right now, and they've been given permission to think and feel this way without any understanding of any of the policies that they're rebelling against.
Yep.
So it's particularly frustrating for us as we're fighting against loud and ignorant people. And I'm not trying to be insulting to the people on the other side, or perhaps maybe I should be, but uneducated is probably the top line of all of their resumes.
Yeah, most definitely. I feel like we're going into a place where people are going to have to start standing up for things that they might not feel comfortable doing, especially with deportation and ICE on the rise everywhere. It's becoming something where you might not have been able to just step in front of someone to do actual change, but I think that's what it's going to have to come down to these days, because for ICE to be in hospitals and for ICE to be going into schools, churches, anywhere that people should be safe is adding panic to their life and uncertainty. So like, what are we going to do in those regards? People sometimes are like, oh, well, I just don't know what to do right now. Like, I just feel so useless or helpless or whatever, or maybe I should just donate money. But at this point, we need actual movement of people and disrupting places where you might not have been able to do in the past, and do it now if you have the chance to, because we're trying to unite people and keep people together. And if ICE is on its way to take people apart from their families and disrupt families and maybe even deport people who just by looking at them look like they quote unquote don't belong here, and just send them to somewhere where they might not even be from.
There are certainly reports of people who, migrants who are being sent to a country that they're not from originally. So there are reports of that. There are certainly reports of people being stopped and perhaps even taken into custody that are American citizens, and maybe they don't have paperwork on hand, because who carries, legal documents on their person at all times? So there's definitely profiling that's happening right now. People are turning on neighbors, on community members, if they hear them speaking Spanish, for example. There are a lot of people who speak Spanish as a second language in this country all the time. And quite frankly, they're probably more intelligent than the people who only speak English.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and probably more hardworking, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
There's a couple things that I want to talk about before we get into the full immigration part. The whole plane crash in D.C., where the plane landed in the Potomac River, and a military helicopter ran into this plane, and there's been no survivors on both ends, whether it was the helicopter or the airplane. But everyone who was on there passed away, unfortunately, and there's people grieving right now from this disaster. And this is the first air incident in the States caused by the States in 16 years. Yeah. Which is crazy. And, of course, the new president of the United States, his first thing to do was to blame DEI, when in reality he disbanded, what were these things called?
So he fired the FAA director, he froze air traffic controller hiring, and he disbanded the Aviation Safety Committee.
Gotcha.
All things that sound like
they
are helpful for these kind of situations
Yeah, it sounds like all of that is related to what happened, is what it sounds like. And from someone who doesn't know anything about this, but if you were to name those things and tell me the incident, it sounds like they go hand in hand.
Yeah, for sure. These things happened really closely together. So I don't know that Trump's policies had this immediate effect on this happening. I don't know that it actually led to it, but it certainly could lead to more incidents like this happening.
Oh, for sure.
But another component that we should certainly be worrying about, the president in general, is him just making these statements that this is an issue with DEI. Well, I believe pilots of both the helicopter and the plane were white. I think they've determined that the air traffic control person was also white. So I'm not sure where DEI came into play with this, but we have to remember going forward, and I think we do, and most of our audience does know this already, and I wish we could reach people who don't know this, is that just because he says something doesn't make it true. And especially when he has nothing whatsoever to back it up.
Nothing.
So he made this statement. There was nothing. He was like, it's a DEI issue. Where? How? Why?
Well, a reporter was asking him that. She was like, well, based off of facts, like, don't you think it's too early to call this investigation for what it is and blame it on DEI? And then she goes, how would you say it's from DEI? And then he goes, well, I have common sense.
Right.
How is that your answer to what happened? How is your common sense, quote unquote, the evidence that you need to basically say that this is why it happened?
Yeah. I think Trump truly believes this is true. I'm
sure he does.
I think he really, really believes it, which is even scarier, in my opinion, that we elected someone who isn't just lying for the sake of making a point, but he really believes the insanity that he's spewing. And it makes him so dangerous, and it puts our country into a very precarious situation. And we're seeing the results of this DEI conversation. The Defense Intelligence Agency put out a letter to its employees that paused all special observances, such as Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, Black History Month, Women's History Month, Pride Month, National Hispanic Heritage Month, National American Indian Heritage Month, and so on and so on. Anything that focused on a minority group or person has now been paused at least this one government agency. That is an immediate effect of President Trump's DEI policies and conversations.
It sounds exactly what Project 2025 said it was going to do.
Well, that can't be the case because he doesn't have anything to do with that. Remember, I don't know if you remember that.
He was like, I have no idea what this is. Yeah. I've seen it, but it has nothing to do with me.
Right.
But apparently, you're erasing culture. You're erasing important historic moments that, if they aren't white, they don't matter. Is what it feels like. And we've been seeing this happen over and over again. Yeah. And if anything, we can see similar things happening now that they did pre-Holocaust, at the beginning of the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know if you want to talk about this. Did you?
I did make a note of it because you actually brought this up to me, and I didn't really realize that this was the case.
Yeah.
But after you said it, then I think I saw a social media post on it, and so it's kind of coming up.
We're seeing the signs. We're seeing the signs of possible outcomes of what can happen, and it's our job to catch it and not let things progress the way that they did several years ago.
Yeah. So one of the first shows of force by the Nazis in Germany was against the LGBTQ community, and it was an attack on information, which sounds familiar. So on May 6, 1933, Nazi demonstrators raided a library that roughly translates as the Institute of Sexology. So that institute was a privately operated research space for studies of human sexuality. And more than 20,000 books were taken from shelves and burned a few days later in the streets by Nazi youth groups. So, I mean, the burning of books, the destruction of information, we don't see people taking books out of libraries and burning them, but what we are seeing is things removed from the White House website. We've seen, as of today, January 31st, the CDC website got scrubbed of HIV prevention, protection information, along with a lot of other types of information that primarily is associated with minority groups like the LGBT community. So we're seeing that sort of thing here. It's just not as blatant and out in the open. But fortunately, we have the ability to communicate
For sure.
and talk about it.
And if anything, this kind of just feels like the beginning. Like we're seeing signs of
It's
this,
week
of
2.
how
It
goes.
is certainly the beginning.
Exactly. So as we're seeing signs of history similar repeating itself, not to the extent of like burning it down yet. We don't know what's going to happen, but we are seeing information and resources being taken away from people who need it, from people who are minorities, from people who are underrepresented. All of the stuff that we have is being taken away from us.
Yeah. I know that the CDC is a government agency, but it's the CDC. Like, how do you remove information about HIV? HIV is something that we need to be focused on combating, certainly not just as the LGBT community. There are plenty of...
This affects anybody.
Yeah.
You don't have to be gay
Yeah.
for this to happen and affect you.
I just don't understand how something that especially that had such a historic significance that devastated a population in the United States has just been removed from the CDC's website.
I just want people to basically understand that right now you might not be affected at this very moment, but it might not start with you. It starts with other people who are openly attacked, queer people, POC.
Yeah.
It starts with us, and that's how it started back in the day in the Holocaust. So if you're seeing those things happen now, eventually they're going to come for you too. So we have to just learn how to understand our differences and hopefully shed some light on our differences and come to the center of it and come together and stand up for those people who are being affected, because they're the ones who need it the most at the moment. And if you see families being torn apart, be a body in the way. Make a scene. I have multiple friends who are teachers at the moment, and they just texted in our group chat a couple days ago and were like, I'm freaking out. We're having meetings at our school about what happens if ICE comes into our school and takes kids away, or if ICE comes to someone's family and takes their parent away and we're left with the kid. Like, we're preparing for these things to happen.
Yeah.
And it's very heartbreaking to hear that from your friends, from people who are already underrepresented. Teachers, they go through so much. Like, first they're battling guns, then they're trying to teach them about how the world works.
Yeah.
So they're basically shaping these children, protecting these children, and now they got to worry about these children being torn away from their families.
Yeah.
Like, how much more do you want to add pressure to teachers, to doctors?
I mean, at least they get paid really well. Oh, right.
They don't even do that.
No, they don't.
No, they are very
underpaid, underappreciated.
everything.
And
teachers deserve the world. But where I was getting to this is that this is what they're dealing with at the moment.
Yeah.
They have kids coming up to them scared for what's going to happen. And some kids are undocumented. Some kids are here looking for a better future by their parents for whatever. And now they got to worry about trying to keep these kids who they love safe.
Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking.
It is. And obviously you can fall on one side or the other about what undocumented people, how they should be here, what they should be doing, if they should or shouldn't be here. We can have that discussion. Where my problem lies is when you go into a school and you're causing permanent mental, emotional damage to these children.
For sure.
The children haven't done anything wrong. They didn't come here of their own volition. Like, their parents brought them. Yeah. So to make them the target of these ICE raids, to me, is just deplorable.
Yeah.
It's despicable.
For sure.
That this is the approach.
And there's immigration camps already built. Just even an hour away from here, Austin, Texas. So like, no one is safe at this point. Anyone who is POC or just looks like they could be to some average ICE officer or whatever. Sure. It comes to a place where I've even told them, I told my friends, I was like, listen, if this ever happens, shoot me a text. Not that I can do much, but I will go cause a scene wherever I can and disrupt any way that I can. Whether that's me being a mental nutcase in front of everybody to just hopefully not separate families. What if I go to jail? I'll be fine with it, because as long as I am trying to keep people together and actually be a contributing person to society, and actually the people who need to be here or want to be here or haven't done anything wrong, I'll be a criminal. If that's what it takes.
Yeah.
If no one's going to stand up in the way and let children be torn apart from their families and what all they've known, yeah, I'll be a criminal any day. That's just me, personally. Hopefully more people will stand by me as I cause a scene wherever I need to cause a scene. But that's what it's going to have to take these days, because if not, then this place is just going to go down. And I think at this point we need to unite no matter what.
Yeah, it's time to disrupt, and it's time to stand up for everyone. And in this example, we're talking about undocumented individuals who are probably from Latin America, a Latin American country. But, you know, they're focused on members of our community as well, particularly transgendered individuals. And, you know, I wanted to share a quick little story that we just went through here, an hour or so ago. There is a local gay bar here in Austin, Texas, Oil Can Harry's. It's been here for 35 years or so, give or take.
Who you do marketing for.
And I do work for them, yeah. And have worked for them for several years. I've known the owner for almost 20 years. Good people. It's gay owned and run, and they really take care of the community. The owner in particular, Scott Neal, who we have to have on the podcast at some point, he is a big advocate for our community, and he really uses his voice and he uses the bar's voice to stand up for everyone, but especially for our community. And someone attended one of the drag shows last night. What appears to be a straight white female was at the bar, and she left a 1-star Google review about the drag show that she attended.
A white woman leaving a 1-star review?
I know, it's hard to believe.
Audience gasp.
And her name's not even Karen. It's Wendy. So
what's her at?
This is a Google review, so I don't have any of her socials, but I will say her full name. Wendy Blakeney. It's on there. It's on the post.
Hey,
so
if you're brave enough to post it,
be
brave enough to get called out.
Exactly.
Sis.
So she left a 1-star review that said, "Could have been a wonderful night and show if one angry queen could have left politics out of it. She was unhinged and a little ridiculous. The other queens were fabulous, but not every gay/trans person hates the president, and not every straight person hates gay/trans people. Leave politics out of it."
When did she post this?
This was posted today.
So she posted this today.
Today.
After what we've seen the past 2 weeks to be like.
Correct.
And you're supposed to be an ally.
Right. So I want to share what the owner, he himself, went in and responded. "Thanks, Wendy, for taking us all down with your 1 star because you let your politics get in the way. Pot, meet kettle. Now, first and foremost, this is our business and not yours, and freedom of speech is protected. So don't tell us what the F to say. Got it? Have you been paying attention to anything political this week? Like all of the anti-trans policy that's coming out of Washington, let alone what's expected to come out of the Texas legislature? Clearly not. Or maybe you think you can come into our community space and act like we're solely here for your entertainment. Well, we're not. First and foremost, we are here to be a refuge to our LGBTQ community, especially to those under attack and in pain. If one of our many performers has to vent as a result of blatant oppression and loss of rights, you will deal with it, or you're not welcome here."
Girl, you're not going to come to our spaces making demands as a privileged white woman who is seeking drag for entertainment, number one. That's really why you're there.
Yeah.
Coming to our spaces to tell us how things should be done. Like, do you not know what these spaces were created for to begin with?
Drag has pretty much always been political.
Very political.
I mean, it is an outward statement of inward feelings, and it's a statement that was illegal for a long time in our country, and people did it anyway. And those people were at the forefront of the gay rights movement with Stonewall, etc.
People died at Stonewall. I'm joking. No one died at Stonewall. And don't call me a lunatic. I'm just referencing another drag queen.
Stonewall was a big deal.
For sure.
Drag queens and trans individuals were at the
Yep.
forefront of that, and they continue to be at the forefront. They have the stage at many of our gay bars, and unfortunately, they are under attack. And again, like when someone attacks one of us, they are attacking all of us.
For sure.
And it's not just that they could come for us down the line. It's that these are people and they are different from us. I get that. But aren't we supposed to celebrate our differences? Isn't that what our country was built on?
Yep.
Is celebrating differences and allowing the differences to make us all as a collective greater and stronger?
Yes. This country was built on a stolen land, number one.
Yeah.
For your information, it's built on immigrants coming to the States to find freedom and a better opportunity of life.
Yeah.
That's the whole purpose of this country.
Yeah.
Is the idea, at least. But then we're here in today's world, and it's the complete opposite. It's actually, you don't belong here because of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And that's usually coming from the 1% wealthy who is predominantly white.
Yes.
That's just the tea.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, we are going to stick around. Well, that's not unfortunate. Unfortunate for them.
Yes.
We are going to stick around, and we are going to keep fighting to be here because this is also our home. And Wendy, some word of advice. If you're going to keep going to these places because you so-called love drag and you so-called love the queer community and you just know so much about trans people and straight people, go into it with an open mind, sis. Listen to what the performers are trying to tell you because they're the ones that are affected directly, not you. Listen to them. And then maybe we won't have this problem.
You touched on a little something right there, which I think is the first cornerstone that we have to build on for ourselves and for other people, and that's just education. Like, obviously she doesn't really know about the history of drag and what, and that's fine. Like, our community, we talk about it a lot. And if you're tuned into our community at all, at some point you've heard about Marsha Johnson and other individuals like her that made a big difference at Stonewall and continue to do so. But obviously, not everyone is educated, and it seems like largely the people who are supportive of these removing DEI measures, who are supportive of breaking up families, who are supportive of trans people going away, they're all uneducated. They don't know any of these people. They live in their little bubble, and they believe that these people have made things worse for them because that's what they're being told. The 1%, the elite, are telling them, okay, yeah, you've got it bad, but you know why? It's because of these people over here.
Yep.
So they're looking for anyone to shift the blame to for their own bad circumstances. And instead of looking directly at who is ultimately responsible, the people who are taking all the wealth for themselves and not allowing any of it to trickle down, despite these trickle-down economics that we've been living off of since Reagan-era economics came into play. And it's just that uneducated element that it is prolific on the right-hand side, and that is maybe our first line of offense, is to educate. Now, who's going to listen? I don't know. But we can start with educating ourselves, first and foremost, educating the people who are around us who will listen. And then hopefully we'll have that one or two people who are on the outer edges of the right, who do go to drag shows, who are friends with gay people, who will be open to listening and understanding that that just because they've been fed some information doesn't mean it's actually true.
I will say this. We are in a time where if you are just going to sit there and not do anything or be okay with what's happening, you're going to be complicit for the downfall of the country. In reality, like, that's the direction this is heading. We're honestly on the brink of a civil war is what it feels like. There's a side that are pro-immigrant, pro-equal rights, pro-progression.
Yeah.
And there's people who think immigrants are the enemy, who think LGBTQ people aren't people, who think that anyone who looks like them is under attack. And that's not true.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, number one, the president literally pardoned a bunch of criminals into the states.
Yeah.
And the people that he's calling criminals are the ones literally getting your groceries out in the freaking fields, getting all the fruits, getting all the veggies, working nonstop for little money, and still paying their taxes.
Yeah. And not getting any benefits from those
Period.
taxes. They're paying taxes
Period.
into the system, but they're not getting Social Security. They're not getting
At all.
Medicaid or Medicare.
Nope.
Yeah, they are doing twice the work for not even half of the benefits.
So anything that President Trump is saying is a problem. He's the one doing those things. He's the one letting criminals out into the state.
Yes.
He's the one not lowering groceries. He's the one causing more problems when it comes to discrimination, when it comes to indifferences. He wants all of us to be pinned against one another so that they're just sitting there making more money.
It's distraction. And if we can just focus on them, and part of that, again, is the education. And it is speaking out, as you said. We have to shut down like that fascist rhetoric, the hate speech, the misinformation, especially. There's so much misinformation that's out there right now. And I think part of it's purposeful and part of it is just ignorance. Again, Trump saying things is just born out of ignorance, I believe. We have to speak out against all of it.
Yep. I just hope we get to a place where we can start seeing each other as human beings, not looking at each other for what we are, what's in our pants, who we like, but in reality, just thinking we have the same blood.
Yeah.
We have a heartbeat. We all have a brain. We all have the same things. We all have the same things.
We all have more things in common than we don't. You know, that's another thing, is just building inclusive communities and supporting inclusivity versus exclusivity. And that is the world that is being created right now. We talked about this last week. Why? Okay, we don't need these programs anymore because it highlights that Hispanic people or Black people, LGBT people get special treatment with DEI programs. Well, no, that's not the case. And if everything was equal, then sure, do away with those. That's the problem. Everything isn't equal right now. If this was a perfect world, sure, of course, do away with it. We're all being treated equally. We all have an equal chance, but that's just not reality.
And you want to know something interesting? DEI, who it benefited the most, was actually white women, believe it or not.
Yeah.
It was white women who had helped out the most.
Absolutely.
Mainly because of maternity leave when you get pregnant. Same thing for handicapable people. Like ramps, all that's DEI. Accessibility through the building, that's all inclusivity and equity that has you listening to an individual, seeing their needs, and adapting as a business to fulfill those needs for your employees.
Yeah. There was a time that women were less likely to be employed simply because they could get pregnant at some point, and that means that, you know, they would have several weeks off and or may not even return to the workforce once, you know, their child was in the world. These straight female, maybe sometime allies like Wendy, I mean, she was going to a gay bar, so you would think that her mind is at least open to the community, but clearly she doesn't even know her own history, like for women's history.
No, but I'm honestly glad this happened. I'm honestly glad she said something and the girls read her, because
oh my gosh, the comments on that.
Hey, you sometimes need a rude awakening.
Yeah.
Whether it's you being oblivious to the real world and to real life problems that may not necessarily involve you in the day-to-day, but are very important to other people, sometimes you got to be put in your place to understand those things. I mean, she was never hurt violently or anything. Like, we're not the other side that leads things with aggression.
Yeah.
We will read you to get you to understand things. But at the end of the day, we just want to find that middle ground with you. Because, Wendy, we don't have any hate towards you. We just want you to actually acknowledge us and understand why we are the way that we are and why there is pain in our culture at the moment.
Yeah, it requires an open mind and listening, and some of that is education, but some of it's going to have to be like peaceful protesting. I think we're going to have to get the signs back out again and hit the streets.
But from what we've seen in the past couple of years in America, even under a Democratic president, peaceful protesting doesn't work. It doesn't ever work.
Well,
so like, what to do? We got to keep doing it, obviously. But
Yeah.
I think the only way it's going to work is for more people to turn out.
Well,
That's the only way it'll
absolutely.
work.
Numbers do matter. And yeah, if you have a protest and 10,000 people show up, well, the numbers are showing not enough people are caring about it. But if you get 100,000 people to show up all of a sudden, yeah, it's going to open some eyes.
Yep.
And it kind of goes along with the fact that we need to continue to be letting our elected officials know our thoughts and feelings on something. Even in a state like Texas, where our elected officials are primarily all Republican, if they heard from enough of us, if they heard from 75% of us that we don't like something, they might start shifting towards what the popular vote is telling them. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't feel like protesting, calling up your elected official has done a lot in the past. But we have to unite as a community, because what else are we going to do?
Yep.
I mean, we can do some other things with some of the companies that have done away with their DEI programs. You know, we can boycott some of these companies.
I have a group chat with my closest friends. All of us come from Latino descent of some sort. And we're freaking out in a way. I mean, 2 of them are teachers. And like I said, they're explaining to us what's happening. And they're like, what can we do? And in my mind, I'm like, okay, next time we get together, whether it's one of our emails or something, we can create an Instagram page. I mean, I'm like, fuck Meta, fuck any social media outlet, because they're all using the same thing, but might as well take advantage of them if we can.
Yeah.
And maybe create something for your city locally and share it with your friends. Maybe they can share it with other people. And it's just resources and stuff to show what's happening. And maybe there is a moment where they are pulling up to the school and trying to take kids that are undocumented, and then a simple post quickly, see how many people you can get there at the certain amount of time. And you never know. Social media can be a very powerful thing, and we need to use it and abuse it in the right way in regards to getting things done for our benefit, and maybe doing things like that.
I believe it was earlier this week, several people on social media posted about ICE sightings in Austin, and they specified what the location was, what part of town it was in. And
Just like that?
I would say that I saw that on at least a dozen friends' profiles.
Yeah.
So it's happening individually, and we just have to come together, because there is power in uniting.
We have the power. We literally have the power. There are more of us than there are of them.
Yeah.
And whether they still might have some of the normal people on their side, we still outnumber them.
We do. It's unfortunately, it's the inactive members of our side that got us into this mess. It's the people who just stayed home and sat on the couch on election day that gave us President Trump again.
It was being complicit.
Yeah.
And just, whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yes.
But all we can do is show up for one another, resist where we can, because the people going through it right now, if you aren't someone who isn't being directly affected, then someone next to you might be. And it is your job to use your privilege that you have and stand up for those who need you at the moment.
Otherwise, you're basically normalizing Trump's behavior.
Yep,
and that's something else that we've talked about. We cannot normalize what's happening.
No, at all. And trust me, I don't want this podcast to be all about politics and all about to be what's going on in today's world. But when it's affecting us directly, we got to use our resources, and we got to use what we have to bring awareness to what is happening, especially when it's affecting our world.
Yeah.
We're coming into some dark ages, and we're trying to create more rainbows and more sunshine in this day. So stay positive. Definitely.
Keep talking.
Keep informing, have those uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah.
Even if you feel like it didn't go anywhere you wanted, you're still bringing information to their mind, and they might be thinking about it a little bit more. And then what if that same person who you beefed with has another beef with someone else and another beef with someone else? And then it's like, okay, something is wrong. Hopefully that happens, but we need to get to that point where we are having these conversations and making people think critically about life and what the whole meaning is. You know?
Yeah.
So if I get arrested in the next 4 years, it was for something good, I promise.
I'll bail you out.
Okay. Fine. That's all you have to say. Because I've been thinking about it, and I'm like, if ICE tries it, I'm going to try it back.
Yeah.
Anywho, Daniel.
Yeah.
And audience.
Yes.
This has been a good episode. Hopefully it didn't stress y'all out.
Yeah, I know we're in stressful times, and I do think it helps to have this discussion. It does give us some momentum as well, and I hope this gives our audience some momentum
For sure.
to stand proud. Like we should be proud of who we are. We bring something unique to the table, especially as part of the LGBTQ community. You bring something unique to the table as part of the Hispanic community. All of us, all minorities, are being pushed back into the closet. But is there going to come a time where something worse is going to happen to us?
Yeah, we can't let it.
So we have to stand proud. We have to rise and resist and rebel, and just look out for each other.
That's it. There might be some moments of being uncomfortable, but the only way to experience true growth is to be uncomfortable for a little bit.
Our country needs some true growth right now.
1,000%. Well, this has been a lovely conversation.
Yeah.
Informative, hopefully empowering to you listeners.
Yeah.
And with peace, love, unity, and respect, which is PLUR, comes from the EDM community.
Yes.
The world could be a better place.
Exactly.
And that's what I lead with. Peace, love, unity, and respect.
Yeah.
And I try to teach that to anybody. I say it quite a bit.
Yeah.
And let's practice it. It's the only way we're going to progress in this world and live in harmony and peace.
That's right.
That's the goal. That is the goal. Anywho,
Please,
subscribe.
yeah, give us a comment, a like, and subscribe, and we will see you next time.
For sure. Bye. Love y'all.